And I think it's for many, many reasons, including few leaders in our nation have done more on so many issues, including to expand access to affordable health care than Joe Biden. And today we take the next step, thank you, Joe, forward in our fight.
Well, for years, Big Pharma blocked Medicare from negotiating lower drug prices. As a consequence, they're able to maintain the exorbitant price increases and the profits are uncalled for. Look, but this time we finally beat Big Pharma. And I might add, with no help from Republicans, not a single Republican voted for this bill, period, not one in the entire Congress. And get this, you may have heard about the MAGA Republican Project 2025 plan. They want to repeal Medicare's power to negotiate drug prices. Let Big Pharma back to charging whatever they want. Let me tell you what our Project 2025 is. Beat the hell out of them.
President Biden and Vice President Harris at an event in Maryland yesterday touting the administration's new agreement to cut certain drug prices.
And I'm going to say the front page of the New York Times today talks about the billions of dollars this program is going to save. And it is really telling that not a single Republican, they claim to be fiscally conservative. They claim to want free markets. None of that. They didn't want to make these big pharma companies negotiate with Medicare. Joe Biden got it done, and there's going to be billions and billions of dollars worth of savings for the taxpayers in the years to come.
So with Democratic enthusiasm on the rise, new polling shows the number of so-called double haters, voters who dislike both the Democratic and the Republican presidential candidates, has been cut in half after Kamala Harris joined the race. According to the latest Monmouth University poll, just 8% of voters do not have a favorable view of Harris or Trump. When Biden was leading the ticket, that number was more than double. 17% didn't have a favorable view of either candidate. So joining us now, national politics reporter for the Boston Globe, James Pindell. His new piece is entitled Harris and Trump Aren't Focusing on Policy. Instead, their campaigns are driven by emotions and vibes.
Well, James, this is all very shocking. I mean, this has never happened before. Camelot, Hope and Change, Morning in America. I mean, these campaigns, for the most part, are about vibes, aren't they? I mean, you look, and so often it is, a turn of a phrase, Ronald Reagan's "There You Go Again," or again, Barack Obama, Hope and Change, that wins the day.
Yeah, there's an overall theme. But even, Joe, when you ran for Congress in 1994, you ran with a contract with America. In the next presidential election, George W. Bush put out an entire book on policy, and late night jokes were all about the Al Gore lockbox. You can go through every single election where we had specific policy ideas for a specific problem facing the country. But underneath it, on this particular campaign right now, voters aren't demanding the specifics. Journalists are not. This seems to be an election that's about something much bigger. I'm not saying it's good or bad, but it's an observation that so far, this campaign has not been one that has been based on how exactly we fix problems with the economy or the border or and so on and so on.
James, good morning. Can you speak to how extraordinarily those vibes that you write about this morning have shifted in the last month? It was doom and gloom all summer for Democrats, particularly after the debate. And they thought there was in some quarters a sense of resignation. OK, Donald Trump's going to win. How do we deal with that? How do we lock down the Senate and the House so he can't run roughshod through Washington? And just how quickly in the last 3.5 weeks or so things have changed in terms of those vibes.
Even if you want to go back to 2020, Democrats were saying, look, Joe Biden's not my favorite person, but he's the only Democrat who can beat Donald Trump. And they turned out to be true. It was such a tight election is probably true. And this time, obviously, it was Joe Biden's not my favorite Democrat, but maybe he's the only one we got. He is the president. But now there obviously is a different vibe shift. The Democrats now think, wow, maybe we actually can win this election. You talked about the double haters in the beginning of this segment, very real. And the enthusiasm gap is obvious. How long this lasts, this still feels like a honeymoon. Obviously, it lasts through the convention next week. We'll see what happens with the first major challenge for the Harris campaign, if it ever happens.
Yeah, James, I was going to ask you, how do they bottle this up, right? We have 83 days or something like that. She's got the convention, then the debates. She has war chest, unlike anything we've seen for advertisements. But at some point, do things get choppy? And if so, how do you foresee that happening?
Well, look, as one source put it to me the other day, this presidential campaign is not exactly a roller coaster. It feels like it, but it's really a kiddie roller coaster. The margins of gaining up or going down are still with 1, 2, or 3 points. There's no doubt about that. And obviously, we expect this to be a longer campaign. The September will be a very critical point, particularly when it comes to that presidential debate or anything else that could happen in the world. But look, what Kamala Harris is doing right now is changing the electoral map. We're no longer just talking about the blue wall states, which we were in those final days of the Joe Biden campaign. Can you just win Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin to block Trump? There's now the Southern Belt strategy. And the mere fact that Donald Trump is on the air in North Carolina, that he went to Asheville earlier this week, shows how the map is changing the moment Kamala Harris is on the ticket.
All right. National political reporter at the Boston Globe, James Pindell, thank you so much for coming on the show this morning. We appreciate it.